Well, I want you to imagine that you're all VTOS students, and the class we're in here is we're after finishing our leaving cert. And this has been assigned as a step on before you go to total level education, before you start to meet up with the dreaded critical thinker that you will know nothing about till you reach total level, and then it arrives like a thump and you don't know what's after happening to you. So this is just to give you a quick grounding in this so that you will recognize it when it comes. Now, this man here is Antonio Gramsci. We're going to have a quick talk about this man, and not about his ideas. We can all nearly say, anybody know what his ideas are, his main idea? The idea of hegemony, or hegemony, whichever way you want to describe it, is quite okay with me. We're not really going to get into that, because most people can tell you about Antonio Gramsci's ideas, but they can't tell you about Antonio Gramsci. Who was he? What was he? Antonio Gramsci was born on the Italian island of Sardinia in 1891, and he was born into a lower middle class family. Now, his father was a local administrative officer for the government who kept getting accused of being corrupt. And when Antonio was 6 years old, his father was finally accused and convicted and sentenced to 6 years in prison for being corrupt. This meant that the family went into poverty. They suffered terribly. At Italy at this time, the poverty was in many levels. And even though the Gramsci family were in poverty, they still had a servant. And one day, while the servant was playing with Antonio, she dropped him. She dropped him on his head. This, the family always believed, caused Antonio's virtual dwarfism. He had a hunchback, a barrel chest, and at his tallest he was only 4'10". The family always considered that this was the fault of the servant. Now, we consider that people who have a servant are very rich. In Italy at this time, even poor people could afford a servant. Servants were paid with food. That's it. No money, just food. So the servant probably didn't have that much love for them anyway. Antonio grew up and he didn't have too much love for his father because of all this. He seen his father as always being the cause of all the problems in his life. Sorry, that's a flicking bastard. When Antonio went to school, it was quickly decided in the school that he had far superior knowledge and intelligence than all his other classmates. He was moved forward in the class, constantly being pushed forward and forward. At the age of 11, when he finished what we would describe as primary school, at 11 years of age, he was given a job in the local tax office, where he worked for 2 years to bring in money to help feed the family. So that's the level of intelligence we're talking about as an 11-year-old. His father was supposed to be sending him money at this time, but Antonio started to suffer terribly from privations because he wasn't receiving any money. In 1911, he was given an award and a bursary to go to Turin University, and this was from the old kingdom in Sardinia. They had brought this bursary forward, but it was for people who were highly intelligent but very, very poor. You had to be from Sardinia to get it. Antonio was brought in, and two things happened to him when he was in university. The first thing was he moved in with his brother. They had no money. And in his writings, he would write home to his mother and to his sister and his other brother, constantly complaining about his father. He hasn't sent me any money. I haven't eaten this week. We have no food. We have no fuel for the fire. We have no food. We can't afford to pay our rent. We're going to be put out again. This was a constant theme in his writings from this time in university, where he was in constant need of money. Because he was unwell, he was constantly getting sick, and because of this, he developed a very bad case of nerve problems. This was to carry with him his entire life. He was constantly sick, both mentally and physically, his entire life because of this. The other thing that happened to him was his elder brother, who he lived with, was a socialist. He was a communist. And his ideas started to rub off on Gramsci. Here in the First Italian Socialist Congress, he moved in and he embedded himself in communism thinking. And he adored it. He seen it as the proper way for people to move forward. Everything that he did it because of this. He started writing because of these, and his first one was Avanti. This was the local Turin version of Avanti, where he would write about the local politicians, and then he started writing about politicians far, far afield in Italy. And this one here, 1919, I'm not trying to pronounce it, I have no idea how to pronounce that. But his writings became that popular because when people would see his writings, they could read he was telling them the truth. It was that popular because he was tearing apart local politicians. They had no way to talk to him. They believed before they met him that they were going to meet a far older man, a far more experienced man. And then when they would meet him, they would meet a small, barrel-chested person. And they obviously would look at him and they thought that he was far below them because of his looks, because of his appearance. But he was so far ahead of them mentally and intellectually that when they would come at him ignorantly and they would shout, he always said that shouting was the tool of the ignorant. And they would shout and he would write. The more they would shout at him, the more he would write. And this left a major problem for him. He was starting to be watched by the government because he was seen now as an agitator. He was seen as a person who was trying to bring the working classes together and show them that there was a better way to live instead of being just constantly being pushed down by the ruling elite. In 1921, the Italian Communist Party split and it went two separate ways. Here's Antonio here, as you can see him, this here. He went with the PCI part of the party. Now at this time, he wasn't a huge player in it because he had other things going on in his life. It was just after this picture was taken, he went to Russia. And he lived in Russia for a year and a half in the Soviet Union, as you'd call it at that time. And in the Soviet Union, he loved it. He could see everything that was happening and he adored it. But as things in the Soviet Union started to get strange and the killing started to get a little bit more pronounced as Lenin started to get sicker and Stalin was starting to take more power, Gramsci could see this. And Gramsci was writing against this. He was saying that people who live in this kind of utopia should be in the utopia. One very, very important person didn't like this. That was Stalin. But Lenin thought it was brilliant. Lenin thought, this wee Italian, this wee fella's onto something here. But with Lenin getting sicker, Gramsci got out of it. He knew the writing was on the wall. And Gramsci left the Soviet Union. He returned.
You have 7 minutes left.
He returned from the Soviet Union in 1926, I think it was, and he moved in with these boys here, and they were all arrested. In 1926, who had taken over control of Italy? Can anybody tell me?
Benito.
Mussolini.
Now, Duce himself had taken over, and he really, really didn't like this little Italian communist coming back from the Soviet Union, telling me how to run my country, and I'm going to put manners on you. So he had them all arrested. They were all sent out to an island. And because they were political prisoners, he was given 20 years and 5 months. I think it's 20 years, 5 months and 4 days. This is a complete sentence. On the island, because they were political prisoners, they were allowed to have virtually no medical care. As they were seen as enemy of the state, why should we pay to keep you healthy? They were given a meagre food ration. So his whole life he had to look after people, constantly write to people, asking for food, asking for medical care, because he was constantly unwell. Went on for 10 years, he was constantly sick. He would be moved from one prison to the other. He would have spent time in one prison, and when he would start to get to know the guards, he would be moved on. His family would be told about this after he moved. His 2 sons, he only got to see his eldest son. He was never allowed to see his second son. While he was in prison, he wrote what became known as his prison notebooks. And these are on his main ideas of hegemony and all that. He also wrote 500 letters. But the most of these letters weren't to his wife, as you would think would be his main correspondent, but to his wife's sister. And it was these letters to her, because she lived in Rome, that held a real key to his thinking of what he actually was experiencing as a prisoner, as a political prisoner in Rome at that time. And I'd just like to point out that he wasn't in a cell as we would think of a cell. Most of the time that he spent in prison, his cell was an actual hollowed out piece of a mountain with a door on it. Middle Ages kind of thing. That's what he was experiencing. At the end of it, he died in this hospital in 1937 in Rome. He died of a stroke, but it was brought on by years of neglect, physical, mental torture, lack of medical care, lack of proper food. His ideas would have died there, but the Avanti started to publish his works in the 50s. So this is some of it. Antonio Gramsci and hegemony. Hegemony is the theory that a wealthy, powerful elite maintain control over the lower social classes and project their own ideologies until the lower classes come to accept them as normal and even desirable. We can see that everywhere today. This can be seen today as we are taught to want things like a car, designer clothes, iPads and smartphones, weight loss, and in many cases hair. That could have been written for me. That's a whole different thing. Modern hegemonic theory states that as the wealthy elite control our media, the media is used to control us and maintain the status quo. We see that everywhere, every day. We hear, there's a modern picture of an election. If you see over here, we have Mexico. I hate the election news. We move on, we have France. There is a mountain of mud being slung. We see that in every election, don't we? In America, zillions of dollars being spent. Russia, and all those ballot boxes to stuff. Who's stuffing them in Russia? And look at China. At least you have an election every year. These are the elite. This is hegemony at its most basic fact. I'm a pessimist because of intelligence, but an optimist because of wealth. It was one of his great sayings. But my favourite one is to tell the truth is revolutionary. So I'd just like to get a volunteer from you there for 1 second here. Actually, 2 volunteers.
The tall one.
Just pass them and just have one each. Okay. Do stand over here for me.
Yeah. Which one?
You yourself, Louise, just stand there. That's
Okay.
it. Now we're going to have, you just stand here, so there we go. Now face each other. Now we're going to have, couldn't have worked out. This wasn't set up. But this is going to be an act of domination. That's what hegemony means. So Louise, I want you to say to Louise in a powerful voice, but remember not to shout, but as powerfully as you can. I want you to point out and say hegemony.
Hegemony.
Now Louise, I want you to look back and say hegemony. Just like that.
Hegemony.
This is domination. But this is someone who has recognized that this is she is trying to be, and she is telling them, I see what you're doing. It's hegemony. It's not working on me. So we could get the whole group to stand up here. Just all of ourselves here. Let's just stand here. Come on. Just stand here, you bad. No, listen, everybody just come over here. Yeah, everybody over here. If we look at society today, if this is society, we have the elite. The elite in society who rule everybody, and they tell us all,
with their iPad.
what are we going to do?
Hegemony.
Tell them what we're going to do.
Hegemony.
No, so strong, but tell them.
Hegemony.
And reply to us.
Hegemony.
There you go. Let's all get a post-it, and like to just write down one word or two words about hegemony, what it means to you, and how that affects you. And we can just post them on the...
Do 2 words.
Yeah, you can just write a sentence whenever you want, just what it means to you now. And that's us finished.